Good morning. I call this special meeting of the Westchester County Board of Legislators to order. Today's Monday, July 30th, and we all could please rise as Legislator Harcum leads us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, give us the strength, courage, and wisdom to always act in the best interest of the people of Westchester County while we're in this chamber. Let us keep in mind that every decision that we make impacts upon the health, life, and safety of all our great county residents. Amen. Madam Clerk.
Majority Leader Harcum.
Here.
Minority Leader Mazzano.
Here.
Ms. Borgia.
Here.
Mr. Burrows.
Here.
Mr. Gelfarb.
Here.
Mr. Kaplowitz.
Present.
Ms. Marcotte.
Here.
Ms. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Ryan. Ms. Shimsky. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Sprickman. Here. Mr. Testa.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Chairman.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, orders of the day.
Item 5121 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations is an act authorizing Westchester County to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the City of Yonkers whereby the county would finance certain infrastructure improvements and be granted an easement to access said improvements in support of a fair and affordable housing development to be known as Warburton Riverview Apartments located in the city and accept such property rights.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to postpone this item to a date and time certain, September 10th at 7 p.m.
Okay. The item's postponed.
Item 5122 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing the issuance of $2,750,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project BPL 01 Warburton Riverview Apartments, Yonkers.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Postponed to a date and time certain, September 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum. Madam Clerk.
Item 5260 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act amending Act Number 26, 1952, which amended Act Number 40, 1941, entitled An Act Establishing Personnel Rules in Westchester County Service and Adopting Classification of Positions and Schedules of Pay.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item we will postpone to a date and time certain, September 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum.
Item 5340 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act authorizing the transfer of funds between various county departments in the amount of $6,178,058.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item we will postpone to a date and time certain, September 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum.
Item 5411 from the Committee on Government Operations, an act authorizing Westchester County to exercise its right of first refusal in connection with the purchase of approximately 2.06 acres of real property located at 867 Sawmill River Road, the water wheel property in the village of Ardsley from the town of Greenburgh.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the county exercising its right as per the 2009 Housing Settlement Agreement for its right of first refusal. The property, the county will be paying $1,210,000, and the property is to be used to create affordable housing units, 17 of which will be count towards the stipulation, and 5 of which will be workforce unit housings at or below 120 of AMI. The 17 units will be the affordable fair housing units counting towards the settlement. So on behalf of the Government Operations Committee, I'd like to move this item.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Village of Ardsley has been working for close to a decade in various forms on getting affordable housing and workforce housing in this water wheel site. I'm glad that we're nearing the point where their plans will finally bear fruit. It will be good for the village, it will be good for the county, and it will be good for all of the residents will be able to benefit from this housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item. Madam Clerk, long roll call vote.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Bezano. Yes. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez. Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 16-0. Item 5423 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, a resolution to classify certain funds in the fund balance of the general fund of the County of Westchester for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2011.
Mr. Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item we will postpone to a date and time certain, September 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Madam Clerk.
Item 5447 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations is a resolution authorizing and directing amendments to the 2012 county operating budget pursuant to Section 167.171 of the laws of Westchester County for emergency appropriations to fund the installation of netting and planking and other necessary repairs on the Ashford Avenue Bridge.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, I would like to move this resolution authorizing the budget transfer due to the current state of the Ashford Avenue Bridge. I will turn this over to Legislator Shimsky, who has worked tirelessly on getting some attention paid to this bridge, but I would like it to be noted that the Board of Legislators, with this resolution, finds that the current deterioration of the Ashford Avenue Bridge constitutes an emergency and an unforeseen circumstance requiring action to protect the interests of the county and its citizens. And I would like to turn this over to Legislator Shimsky. Thank you.
For that, Ms. Shimsky, Ms. Borgia, it was out of your committee as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In government operations, we talk about the Ashford Avenue Bridge quite a lot. One of the strategies that we decided we wished to pursue was to provide the administration every available opportunity to handle the repair of this bridge in the most expeditious way possible, specifically as a result of the concrete pieces falling off the bridge, which I know Legislator Shimsky will talk about, and therefore we had decided in the committee that we were in support of this resolution as well.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is going to be part of a series of pieces of legislation that we will be acting on in the next 7 days. The need for this resolution arises from the events of June 22nd of this year, in which several pieces of concrete fell from the bridge onto the New York State Thruway. 6 vehicles were damaged. Fortunately, no one was injured. Odds are we're not going to continue to be that lucky, however. So it's important that we get something in place to protect the motoring public while we move our plans forward for the ultimate complete rehabilitation of the bridge. There is a capital budget amendment which the administration sent down late last week, which will be on the agenda for August 6th. As far as I know, we will be moving that forward, and I anticipate that it will pass. However, there have been questions about the bondability of the netting and planking work. So in light of that, and in light of the fact that because there was no emergency declared, we have to get the financing in place before we could actually get the work done. And since it's been 5.5 weeks now since the incident took place, we just received the capital budget amendment from the administration 5 weeks after the incident happened. And as I said, there are questions, potential questions about the bond's validity in this regard. It's important for us to have a backup that the administration can fall back on, because we're nearing the point where days matter with this. The sooner we get this up, the sooner the motoring public will be safe. At this point, if everything goes according to plan, the netting and planking will not be in place till mid-October. That's a very long time considering the accelerated deterioration of the bridge and the fact that the licensed engineers, both who work with the county and licensed engineers who have been observing the situation over time, cannot predict with certainty that we will be able to keep the concrete off the roadways for that long. For that reason, it's important to have a backup to the CBA so the administration can move immediately to continue the process of getting the repairs if for some reason there's a procedural problem and they end up ultimately not being able to use the capital budget amendment. That is why I'm asking my colleagues today to support this as a backup for the CBA. At such point as the work with the bridge progresses pursuant to the CBA and there's no problem, I will be happy to introduce another resolution withdrawing this one to keep our books clean. But at this point, it has to be all hands on deck because we are dealing with such a problem with that bridge at this point, and it's behaving in completely unpredictable ways at this point. One piece of evidence of that was on the night itself that the concrete fell, at the point when the engineers were doing just one little bit of tapping and expected to find nothing new. A large section of concrete fell on a truck owned by the state of New York, heavily damaging it. So we need to move the work as quickly as possible. This is a backup financing plan, so the administration does not have to take the time, if something is wrong, defective with the Bond Act, to come back to us for us to act on alternative financing. They'll have an alternative in place that we can move on. And again, this is for the safety of the motoring public in this county and everyone else who drives under the Ashford Avenue Bridge, which includes people who use the Sawmill River Parkway and the New York State Thruway, which is not an inconsiderable number of people. I thank my colleagues for listening to me yet again on this very important issue, which is now turning into a serious public safety concern. And I hope we'll be able to move in a bipartisan way, all hands on deck, do whatever we have to do to get the emergency repairs done, and then move forward with the ultimate rehabilitation project. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Shipsky. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I've met anybody yet that disagrees that we need to take care of the safety of the taxpayers, the people who use the bridge, people who drive under the bridge. That has never been a question, has not been a question to date. I expect it will not be a question into the future. The question is, how do we finance this? And the proper way to finance this is through a capital budget amendment, which came down on Friday, the same time that we were voting on a resolution. The reality is that 2 weeks ago, we received notification from Moody's that once again that the credit outlook for Westchester County was put on a negative outlook. Primary reason being the balances of our fund balance, the adequacy of our fund balance. We are very fortunate to have a AAA rating. AAA rating saves a tremendous amount of money for the taxpayers in Westchester County. Our discretionary money will go down significantly once that AAA rating is lost. And we are probably in the very, very lowest quartile of any county that has AAA rating with remaining fund balance. Again, safety is paramount. Now, in committee meetings, I have asked, would funding this through any alternative method get this done quicker? The answer was no. The answer was no. So we have one resolution here on the table which would have the impact of drawing down our reserves even further and impacting our credit rating conceivably down the road, which is very real, or we have the proper way of doing it through a capital budget amendment, which will not be a problem in any way whatsoever, as part of the long-term rehabilitation plan for that bridge. As I understand, there will be no problem with bonding it in that manner, and that is a proper sequence for doing it in that manner. Again, safety is paramount. This is not an issue of safety. It's a question of getting it done in the same amount of time it would be done normally, but also being respectful of the fund balance of the county and doing things in a proper manner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other members on this item. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few points I'd like to make. One, with respect to the negative outlook and the relationship of the Moody's rating to our fund balance, I would, for the record, point out to just about every AAA county has had a negative outlook. which actually relates more or less to the sovereign downgrades that occurred with Moody's approximately a year ago. Secondly, the point about the safety and the need to spend the fund balance, to really draw down on fund balance now, is one of making a decision that would prevent the possibility of a greater expenditure that the county may incur if we do not take immediate action. That being the liability that this county continues to be exposed to every day that bridge is not, the netting and planking does not occur on that bridge. That God forbid concrete falls and injures someone, we will not be only talking about spending money from our fund balance, but we will be talking about the disaster that potentially could occur to residents of this county. So I think it is important that we take a careful look and move on the immediate circumstances that we need to rectify the situation here. The resolution pertains to using fund balance to fund the amounts of the netting and planking that Legislator Shimsky discussed. It is not spending money for any other reason but to prevent the county from incurring a potential large liability, very large liability, since we are on notice of the conditions of that bridge at this point. So I think that it's prudent that we take action right now, and I want to commend the Legislator Shimsky for all the work that she has done to make sure that the public is protected from this situation that occurs, that is occurring right now, and is potential danger to residents.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Burrows, I'm sorry, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you. I just want to rise for 1 minute, echo the comments of Legislator Smith, and also commend, as Mr. Williams just did, Chairperson Borgia as well as Legislator Shimsky for taking such a proactive stance on the matter. However, what Mr. Williams seemed to have missed when my colleague spoke, Mr. Smith, is that this project has already been out for bid for the netting as well as the planking. And what I didn't realize, because I'm not an engineer, is that you just can't put netting up under this bridge. It's got to be measured, it's got to be fit, you've got to go and the strength of the netting, you got to make sure that it's going to go and meet the kind of demands that we might have in case one of these stones falls. So that is already part of the process. That's being done as we speak. If we can get, if we work cooperatively with one another, as opposed to trying to outshow the administration, or the administration trying to show that they're more proactive than the legislator. If we work together, we can accomplish this goal. And it's not that difficult to pass a capital budget amendment, so we're meeting the criteria that Mr. Smith spoke about earlier. So it's just a matter of us not playing politics on this floor. And, you know, I turned to my Democratic colleagues. You guys got the numbers here. And as I said to Legislator Shimsky before, speak to us. We'll vote for you on this thing. We all know this is a safety issue. We all want this addressed. It's just a question of how it's going to be addressed. And this isn't the proper method at this point in time. Bottom line is, I don't want anything to happen. And I don't want anybody to go and accuse any Republican members, because we're taking a stance today on voting against this. God forbid that somebody gets hurt on the situation. God forbid. But let's do things the right way. Let's work with one another. We understand the desires of Legislator Shimsky, what she wants to do. We join you in those efforts. It's the way we're going about doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Other members, Mr. Kaplowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I stand to say I agree, and I agree. And I think we can have it always, without question. You cannot have a situation where chunks of concrete are falling off a bridge, a below bridge, onto a major highway below. Everyone agrees to that. The administration recognizes it, the legislators recognize it, and kudos to Legislator Shimsky, who is doing her job within her district, as each and every one of us does, of course, within her district. I have, to this particular resolution here, the same concerns we all have, which is we want to do the right thing in pursuit of fixing this bridge and doing it as quick as possible. The parentheses irony to all this is that even if today we voted on the capital budget amendment, it's still going to take some time to get the netting and the planking and to do all that work. And let's just institutionally cross, I don't know what institutions cross, I guess flags, and hope that nothing falls in the short term and that nobody does get hurt. But all we can do is move as reasonably, appropriately, and as quickly as possible, and today is in pursuit of that. We're to the point where we're discussing it. We're to the point where we're voting on it. We're to the point where, to the credit of the administration, they sent us the capital budget amendment. We have that, and I understand that good committees today and tomorrow will be taking that item up, and next Monday we have a chance to vote on the capital budget amendment. I intend to vote yes on this, as I intend next week to vote yes on the capital budget amendment, because we have to fix the Ashford Avenue Bridge, and it's just not acceptable to be in this situation. And we need to send a message as the institution that while we're not the Public Works Department and we don't tack up netting, that those that do have to move as quick as possible. The reason I'm supporting this is because I listened very carefully to Legislator Shimsky, and what she indicated was that she, as the prime mover of this resolution, recognizes, as I think we all do, that it's more appropriate to bond this work. It's a capital project, it should be bonded. I understand its PPU is a 5-year period, not 15, but even with the low cost of use of money and the appropriateness of the capital project, Mr. Smith is correct. We really should be bonding this out. We all recognize that, and the capital budget amendment, whether it took time to get to us, didn't take time to get to us, appropriate, why is it here? The point is it's here, and the administration does recognize the same concern that we do as a legislature. So let's vote on it. This is an opportunity to continue to underscore that it's important, that in fact we want to, as a matter of policy, put this forward and recognize the work has to get done. But at the same time, I'm going to vote both for the capital budget amendment, and I recognize and look forward to the action of Legislator Shimsky and this board to, in the appropriate time in the future, send us a resolution that in essence revokes this funding stream and this mechanism, because this is not the preferred way to do it. Don't do it out of operating, but instead do it out of capital, and that we would be able to move forward on Ashford, get the capital budget amendment going. But if, for example, today or tomorrow, the committees review the capital budget amendment, and it's flawed in some respect, right? It still has to be vetted. We still have to look to it to make sure it can cover, because it does not, as I understand it, have the specific language of planking and netting contained therein. Now, the administration has explained it's subsumed within, and it's within the entire project, remediation and all. That's fine, but that needs to be put on the record. We need to have that institutional assurance that that's the case. There's still work to be done. This at least says, as a matter of priority, we've done everything we can do. The administration and us will work together to get this bridge fixed. And I'll join the ribbon cutting along with everybody else, but most importantly, let's not have a circumstance where anything happens out there. But I would urge colleagues to vote yes to today, but also support the CBA next week, and then look forward to the day where we get that revocation of today's action that would put that money back into, if you will, the category that it's currently at. And furthermore, this resolution unto itself does not move the monies forward. It simply would require a capital budget amendment or capital budget process to allocate these dollars in the specific fashion anyway. So this legislature certainly has some work to be done, but I think this allows us to have that kumbaya opportunity to get together this morning and to move this project forward, which is the only thing we can do. And again, hopefully nothing happens to anybody in the interim.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplis. Mr. Mazzano.
I certainly have a great respect for Legislator Shimsky's advocacy for her district and all the legislators that are concerned about the safety of the people of Westchester relating to this bridge. And I look forward to voting for the capital budget amendment. I certainly hope we would have a bipartisan, unanimous vote for the capital budget amendment. Regarding this resolution as before us, I think it's unnecessary. I think it's procedurally flawed, and I'm not quite sure why it's before us when we all know the capital budget amendment, which we now have, it's before the board, that we can just vote on that and deal with this problem immediately. I think that's the right way to go. Voting for a resolution, which in my mind merely states the will of the board, has no force of law, and also talks about dealing with the reserve fund, I think is a flawed way to go to deal with this very serious problem. So while I won't vote for this resolution, because I think it's procedurally flawed and doesn't really change anything, I will certainly vote for the capital budget amendment and look forward to doing so. With that said, I'd like to make a recommendation, if I can, to my colleagues, see if this idea can be entertained. Rather than vote on this resolution, which I think is procedurally flawed, why don't we adjourn this meeting for the time being, go into the Budget Committee, pass the capital budget amendment, come back in on unanimous consent into this meeting, and we can vote on the capital budget amendment today. I'd like to make that recommendation to my colleagues. I think it's the best way to go, rather than get into a vote where we have differences of opinion on an issue where we all seem to agree on the capital budget amendment. Why don't we adjourn this, recess, I said adjourn, recess this meeting, go into the Budget Committee, pass the capital budget amendment, come back on the floor. Our caucus will certainly vote by unanimous consent to do the capital budget amendment today, so we can have a unanimous vote to deal with this problem immediately. Everyone's talking about urgency. There's your urgency. That's my suggestion to my colleagues. Here's a way to do this in a bipartisan and immediate way, and I hope people like that idea and hope we can do that today.
Thank you, Mr. Maisano, for your comment. Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything all my colleagues are saying, but as chair of the Public Safety and Security Committee, my number one concern and priority is the safety of the public, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way here. Legislator Burrows said, we don't want to play politics, and I sure do hope that we're not playing politics, and I know that we're not going to play politics with the safety of the public. Legislator Shimsky has been advocating for this bridge for months now, since I've known her, and that was, 7 months ago now. How much longer is this going to take? We keep saying that we agree with one another, we want to do what's right here, we want to be able to protect the public, we don't want to see any accidents, but it keeps taking longer and longer. We need to agree with this, we need to be able to close on this and move forward. The netting and planking has been an issue. How much longer is it going to be an issue? I don't want to see something happen where a big chunk of this thing falls down and injures or kills a person driving underneath the bridge. The last thing we need is to lose a resident because of an accident, and again, legal issues might come from there, and then still the taxpayers will be paying the money for this. So I want to be able to move forward on this, and I'm going to be in support of this, and I'm going to be in support of the capital budget amendment as well.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Other members? Ms. Spreckman.
Yes. I would like to second Jim Maisano's motion. I have to be home. My husband just came out of the hospital. We should be in budget now, and Mr. Kaplowitz, who was the former budget committee head, knows that we could go in there now, pass it, and come back here, and please, everybody, I'd like to see it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spreckman. Let me just put for the record so everyone recognizes, the administration, while they did not call and send it to me, we did have that information. It was placed in Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations. So there are two committees that have this particular document. Government Operations has it on their agenda for tomorrow. So for that particular purpose. Other members? Mr. Harker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully I can give some closure here. I just want to comment on a couple items as well. You know, the reality is the board wants to get this done. The administration wants to get this done. Democrats and Republicans all want to get this done. This is just another tool in the toolkit. It allows us to cash it up to begin the process. Anything we bond has to be cashed up anyhow. It's not an either or. We are going to do both. We will vote for this and pass this today, and then we will vote for the capital budget amendment. But I should point out, we should not be making commitments on things until we do our due diligence. That's our job. You know, it may sound great that we're going to rush out and vote for something. Let's just do our due diligence first. That's why we have our committee structure. It's in two committees. The political will is there to get it done, but we always have to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. That's why we're elected to be here. So we will get that done, but we need to do it in an expeditious fashion. The other thing I'd like to say, we're talking about fund balance. We just received our CAFRA once again. Right now we have an $85 million surplus. $135 million, exactly, $135 million. So, you know, we need to talk about fund balance in context. And once again, I know we say this from time to time when we speak about resolutions. The role of the county executive is to see that the laws of the state pertaining to the affairs of the government in the county, the acts and resolutions of the county board, and duly enacted local laws are executed and enforced in the county. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Again, you know, this is all going to get done. It's another tool in the toolkit. It's not an either or, and we'll move ahead on both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum. Other members? All right. The only thing that we'll do is for some clarity again. This is a financing mechanism. I know that I asked the county executive in the budget and Board of Acquisition and Contracts. I know that initially when Legislator Shimsky and a bunch of elected officials, including the Deputy County Executive, first talked about this, they talked about an emergency appropriation, emergency resolution to be presented by the board to the Board of Acquisition and Contracts, which would allow the financing mechanisms. And we're all talking the same thing. It's about financing and moving these things forward. So I think that everyone is clearly on the same page. Everyone is clearly also listening to what the engineers said, which is the bridge is safe to travel over. However, they did not tell us, they could not give us any assurances. The professional engineers said that they could not give us any assurances of anything in the future. That was just as clear as a bell. So trying to move this item forward as quickly as possible, we have to note that on Tuesday in the meeting on government operations, which I happened to attend, there was a planning board meeting that morning. That capital budget amendment and all that process was done on Tuesday. For whatever reason, it did not get down to us until Friday at 9:30 after the meeting for budget and appropriations. It did not come to the clerk of the board. It did not come to the clerk of the board, which is the way that it would come into our consideration at all. Again, we keep emphasizing, and I don't know how many times we keep emphasizing to the administration, when we want to talk to the legislators, the county executive has a way of doing that, and that's through the clerk of the board. And both the clerk, while she was on vacation, the deputy clerk was here all day on Friday expecting that documentation from Wednesday evening. The other thing that we want to keep considering is that when we talk about cash, let's not forget the administration spending $17 million of cash unauthorized by the Board of Legislators. Cash, $17 million, just wrote a check, but for something that we certainly, I think if it would have came in front of the board, would have supported a portion of, if not the full amount. But they wrote a check for $17 million without asking us, and then we just did the budget transfer at our last budget meeting of $94 million in this board by an act. The second part is we've transferred $12 million in the committee between departments. We don't need a resolution or an act. We don't need an act to move money around. We can do it with a resolution. We do it for a resolution. We did it the last meeting for a resolution. We've moved money before in resolutions. We did $94 million with resolutions. We did $12 million in the committee without coming to the full board, because that's what's in our charter and allows us to do. The third thing on that particular item that we need to keep talking about is this whole negative outlook thing, which is a concern which we will save for a future budget meeting, because those transfers that were not done, that we did not do today, because of a commitment that was made on this floor and a request that was made to the majority leader to recommit an item so that there would be a resolution on some dollars that are involved in that $6 million transfer from DSS, specifically for the 4 after-school programs that are in both Democrat and Republican districts, that we were trying to make sure that happened, that we afforded the administration an opportunity to do internally with just a line, a reservation by the department. Then we followed that up and said, well, you can do it yourself at the administration. We told them that. We set that out to the leadership of this board, and that wasn't done. And on Friday, the administration said, we're not going to make that transfer. So those after-school programs are in the lurch right now because of that budget transfer. The leadership of the Republican caucus asked for those things to be recommitted and made a suggestion that there was a commitment to have an alternative that was in front of the board for our next meeting, which is today. And I don't believe that, I have not heard a different resolution. I'm looking at the budget chairwoman, and she has not heard a resolution. I'm looking at the chair of community services. They have not seen a resolution. Again, if we want to make commitments on the floor, I'm good with that, right? but that means someone has to follow through. And at this point in time, for the last thing that we were asked to put aside while we have a conversation and come up with some bipartisan suggestion, did not happen. Finally, when we talk about the county's credit rating, we need to consider something that was announced, which we have not received as of yet, which is on this local development corporation, which is intending on presenting to the board two particular projects, one for a hospital, which we just got rid of our hospital financing about 2 years ago for the medical center, and took that off of our books, which impacted our credit rating, which was a note every year in our credit rating, in our credit report about the medical center financing, and took that off because of the problems with the medical center, as well as a private school. I'm looking forward to seeing those come down to the board and see how the legislature decides on dealing with those. But those impact our credit rating as well. This particular resolution is necessary. It is not political. It is a situation where we're able to give the financing that the administration said from day one was necessary to put up this netting and planking that is just to protect the roadway. It doesn't fix anything. It just protects the additional pieces of roadway from falling down on the road, potentially, protecting the county taxpayer for all the liability. So I'm hopeful that everyone will support this, just like I'm hopeful when the resolution for the CBA comes and we go through committees and due diligence is done and modifications, et cetera, that we have all that work done by next Monday and be able to vote on that next Monday. Madam Clerk, long roll call vote.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
No.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa. Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 9-7.
Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 5449 from the Chairman of the Board is an act to provide for certain salary and benefits protection for county officers and employees who are members of the Ready Reserve and who are or may be ordered to active military duty pursuant to Executive Order 13223, signed by the President of the United States on September 14, 2001, and to such other county officers and employees as may be compelled by state or federal law or regulation to perform duties related to the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001.
Thank you, members. This one is, I directly submitted this to the agenda, although it is not a request to do so. There was a press release suggesting that we were going to get a piece of legislation. This piece of legislation has been passed from 2001 prior to my being on this board. I'm looking at our senior members, Mr. Mazzano, Mr. Kaplowitz, Ms. Spreckman, to understand we have passed this unanimously from 2001. There would be no reason that we would not pass this unanimously again, but it came to the board through a press release that, for whatever reasons, did not come to us in the timely fashion. The legislation actually expired in April. So we are taking this up today because none of those members should be suffering because of a fault, a gap, or whatever from the administration. We will make sure to move this forward and put it on the table. Members on this item. Madam Clerk, long roll call vote.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 16-0. Under notices and petitions, item 5322 from the Committees on Legislation and Budget and Appropriations is a local law amending Chapter 836 of the laws of Westchester County by adding a new section 836.22 to specify requirements for federally funded purchases. Please note this amended version will replace the version previously signed out of committee and will be the subject of the public hearing set for August 6, 2012, and appears here for informational purposes only.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Harkam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, I would move that we would adjourn and reconvene on August 6th at 10 a.m.
On the motion of Mr. Harkam, the board stands adjourned.
I hear you're going on a safari.
Which are bypass my clerk. What the fuck is the matter with you?
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Wait.
The officer, you're going to be